we'll start with Desmond Ritter just because I like how the same thing with Kenny Pickett. I think Desmond Ritter coming into the draft is a very experienced quarterback. And for him, he's played in the big games. Played in the college football playoffs this past season. He had a lot of poise playing in those big games against some top caliber players that the similar opponents he'll be facing in the National Football League. But at the same time, I think he has below average tool sets in terms of being a passer. He was great in big moments. He answered the bell, was a great teammate, a great leader on the field. But there's still some things that needs to be cleaned up. And I love this comp from Lance Zierlein from NFL. He comped him as Alex Smith. Great leader,
Okay.
experienced in big games, but not necessarily a quarterback that has all the tools to do it all on his own, if that makes sense.
No. And I completely agree. Sam Howell and Desmond Ritter, I've been going back and forth on a lot. And, I'll start with Desmond Ritter because we're doing that. But no, I completely agree. I think, he has the ability to be a great quarterback in the NFL. He's got the size, he has got the leadership, and he does have the skill set, but it's just not polished. And that's the thing. We've seen some accuracy issues. We've seen, sometimes he can be a little bit of a slow operator. He gets a lot of balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. I think he had 26 balls batted down last season, something like that. It was a lot. And, it's just something that he's going to need to work on. And a lot of people see him as having a ton of potential, which he does. But there is a lot more to work on with Desmond Ritter than there is to work on with some of the other quarterbacks that we're considering as the top 5 potential first-round draft picks. So when you're a team and you're looking at possibly drafting Desmond Ritter, you're looking at a project. And you're not looking at a guy, that, sit behind him 1 year and he can definitely be your starter year 2 coming out. You've got to take your time. You got to make sure he's ready. And you really need to put some time and effort into building around this kid. So there's a lot to think about, but you also have to consider he has a very high ceiling. He can be a very good quarterback in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think the best situation for Desmond Ritter going into the NFL is landing with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
I think going to the Falcons in the second round will be a good situation for him. Let Arthur Smith build around him in his first year while running, the show with Marcus Mariota. I think the Falcons probably have a bottom 2 roster right now in the National Football League. I think I think they might have the worst roster. Between them or the Bears. Their rosters right now of what they have is bad on both sides. And Atlanta, I don't see them being more than a 3 to 4 win team next year with Marcus Mariota. Unless they get some receiver in, whether it be in the first round or a free agency. But even then, I don't see their ceiling being too high. So I think it would be smart to go the avenue in the second round with Desmond Ritter. Build him behind the scenes like how quarterbacks used to be and how Trey Lance was this past season. The way I think that you should do it with quarterbacks, even though I was on the start Trey Lance train all year. But I think Desmond Ritter's the one, just with the skill-wise, the skills he has as a passer is nothing off the charts. So you have to groom him in a way similar to Malik Willis, but he's experienced and intelligent enough to win in big games. Atlanta's going to be playing some big games in the future if they want to start competing in the NFC South or in the NFC in general. But I think a second round slide with Desmond Ritter might get him there. But something I do have to say, watching Desmond Ritter's tape, and something that funny enough reminded me of 2021 Carson Wentz this past season. At times I thought he was too competitive and did too much, especially early in the games. We saw that from Carson Wentz all year last year with the Colts, where it's early, dude. There's no reason to be forcing balls downfield in the first quarter. What do you just take your L, come back in the next drive? I thought Desmond Ritter did a lot of that in Cincinnati. I love the competitive spirit, but at some point you got to calm down a little bit. And the other thing, he had a slow release with the ball, So some of the downfield throws, it allowed safeties to close in and get pass breakups on them. But that's just some of the the little things that can get cleaned up if he has time to sit and fully get groomed and polished out by a good coach.
Yeah, and I'll get into that stuff in a minute. But going back to the whole thing with the Atlanta Falcons, I completely agree with you. I think they would be a perfect situation for him. But you need to make sure that there's another quarterback on that roster, because Marcus Mariota has had a history of getting injured or playing really, really badly in the NFL. And Marcus Mariota has had help in the past. Now he has no help except for Kyle Pitts. So if you want Desmond Ridder to sit in the background, not do anything for at least a season, you need another guy in that locker room that will be able to be that QB2, because you don't want Marcus Mariota getting a concussion in week 2 and having Desmond Ridder have to go out there into the fire and trying to put it out. So that's the only thing that I would be concerned about with him going to Atlanta, especially since Atlanta has absolutely nothing on that roster. No defense, no offensive line, no weapons except Kyle Pitts. You just need to be confident that you've got another guy out there that you can throw on the field if Marcus Mariota were to get injured early on in the season. Going on to what you said about Ridder being too competitive, completely agree. There were a lot of times where I was watching and he was putting his body on the line, and it was about 3 minutes into the first quarter.
Yeah.
Running, diving for the first down. I'm like, bro, you're at the 20-yard line. You're going to punt. It's fine. It happens. You don't need to worry about it. You're most likely still going to win this. That 1 yard is not going to change the game right now. And there are multiple reasons why you can't do that. One, with the passing, what you mentioned, turnovers. It's going to happen if you keep doing that. Two, what I mentioned, getting hurt. You don't want to do that, especially early on in your career. You want to be on the field as much as possible once you become the starting quarterback, because this is the time for you to learn. Once it gets too late, it becomes too late, because you're going to get a lot of pressure from the media. You're going to get a lot of pressure from your teammates expecting you to be the guy. So you need to be on the field as much as possible. And, obviously the little things, as we mentioned, the slow processing, the release timing, stuff like that, the accuracy, the consistency, and, those are things that can be fixed. I wouldn't say easily, but I'll say pretty easily by NFL coaching staff if you work with the person and give them time.
Yeah. And just to end on a high note with Desmond Ridder, because we've been knocking him for a good bit there.
Yeah.
But one thing, one thing he is, I would say, a lead at, and acts like an NFL type quarterback from what I saw. He is advanced at pre-snap reads. Being able to point out coverages, being able to point out rushes for his offensive line, and whether it's audibles, but the entire pre-snap aspect of the game is so important in today's NFL, and he masters it. And he really showed that in Cincinnati, and something I really liked about him. And also, similar to what I talked about with Malik Willis, he can drive a pass. I mean, once he gets set, once he gets in his base, he has a lot of power coming off his leg to drive a ball. He's got that weird, slow release thing going for him once he throws it. That gets him in trouble. But overall, highly intelligent, experience in big games, just clean up the little things. And I don't see him sliding into the first round, but I think like a team like the Falcons in the second round could be a good fit for him.